Testing, testing. Okay, good morning. Please take out the Chumashim again. Kannst du halt nach Chumash, leben the Gemara. Ich hab mir geben euch. A dank. A größen dank. Perfect. Okay, please open up your Chumash again to Parshas Boy, Perik Yud Beis, page 183. If you have these Chumashim, the blue Chumashim, it's page 183, or Perik Yud Beis. Okay. So we started the Sugya on Daf Hey Amid Beis, which basically tries to analyze and dissect and figure out what exactly is the type of chametz that we have to get rid of, what type of chametz do we not have to get rid of, what chametz can remain in our home, what chametz cannot remain in our home. What about in other properties outside of our home? What about if somebody else's chametz is in our home? All these questions we have to figure out from only 3 psukim in the whole Chumash. Because there are only 3 psukim that basically prohibit having chametz on Pesach for 7 days. And each one is said a little bit in a different way. And here you'll have a classic example of what we spoke a few times about, especially before we started the Sugya on Avdalah Amid Beis, of deconstructing Torah Shebeksav and then reconstructing Torah Shebeksav, to go from the text back to the Shiurim of Moshe Rabbeinu, back to the lectures of Moshe Rabbeinu from Torah Shebeksav to see the Torah Shebal Peh. And you will have here an example even more than from the previous Sugya of Ach B'Yom HaRishon, of how meticulous and precise it gets, even in one detail which would seem completely insignificant and then contradictory, but it's written exactly in that particular way to bring out in a very delicate fashion the balance between two different halachic verdicts on 2 similar but very different situations, as will become clear soon.
Question. Someone asked me, what was the source for that way of that methodology that the text, the Torah's text, is the short answer of the Sefer, the Shiurim, and the Mitvah? What's the source?
That explanation I saw, I think, the first time in the writings of Rabbi Shimshon Raphael Hirsch. So he brings it out in a very clear fashion, but it resonated with all the basic sources in the Chazal, you know? Sometimes something resonates. Yeah. There's an expression by the Ralbag. Rabbeinu Levi ben Gershon was one of the great Jewish philosophers in the 14th century. So he has a sefer called Milchamais Hashem, which is a book on Jewish philosophy. And he has an expression there, a beautiful expression. Ha'emes maskim la'atzmai mikol tzad. How do you know when something is true? From any angle that you look at it, it just resonates. You know, it resonates from all sides, you know. It's just the perspective, it just brings everything together. You look here, you see it, you look here, you see it. That's what he says. He says, V'zem is gulas ha'emes. one of the qualities to know truth is maskim atzam ekol tzad. He speaks there about proving that the world has a creator. So he brings from it's a very interesting expression. Okay. The first pasuk that we learned was Perik Yud Beis pasuk Yud Tes in Shmois Parshas Boy 183. Shivas Yamim Sa'ar Lo Yamatzei Bebatechem. Right, 7 days you should not have chametz in your homes. Lo Yamatzei means in Yiddish soll nicht gefunden werden. I guess in English should not be found in your chametz in your homes. Clearly, it goes for 7 days. We know which 7 days these are. The 7 days from the 15th day of Nisan. We don't say Yomim means only days and not nights. We already learned before. It begins with the night. Yomim here doesn't mean 12 hours. It means periods of 12, it means periods of 24 hours. So for 7 days, you shouldn't have sa'ir in your homes. Yeah, then he discusses the eating. That's the first pasuk. If it would have said only this, I would have said in my homes, in any of our homes, we can have chametz, yeast, or sourdough, zoyer take for 7 days. This is still in Mitzrayim. Moshe's in Mitzrayim, and he speaks to the Jewish people. The next pasuk where he introduces this mitzvah once again, this prohibition once again, is after they leave Mitzrayim, and it's actually, a lot of mitzvahs we know from Moshe telling them to the Jews or from Hashem telling them to Moshe. Meaning, you would expect in Torah, Hashem speaks to Moshe, and Moshe repeats it to the Jewish people. But that's not always the case. Sometimes we only know what Hashem told him, and we assume that he said it over to the Jewish people, because that was the point. And sometimes we only know what he told us, and we assume that Hashem told it to him. That's also an important distinction in Chumash, when sometimes you have this, sometimes you have that. So the first one, Moshe speaks to the Jews. The second one, he doesn't say to the Jews. God says to him. We know that he gave it over to the Jewish people because that was the point. The point was that it's not a secret for him. It says, Vaydaber Hashem el Moshe Leimer, Perik Yud Gimel. Leimer means, azoitz, to repeat. That's what Leimer means, right? Vaydaber Hashem el Moshe Leimer. But if you look at page 187, which is Perik Yud Gimel, yeah? Matzas Yachel es Shivas Hayamim, Perik Yud Gimel Pasuk Zion, page 187. Matzas Yachel es Shivas Hayamim, v'lo yirah lecha chametz, v'lo yirah lecha sar b'chol gvulecha. Here we have a new pasuk. Eat matzahs for 7 days, and yeast should not be seen to you, and chametz should not be seen to you, and yeast should not be seen to you. Where? In your entire gvul, meaning in your entire border. Anything that can be called your border, your gvul, your domain, let's put it that way. Chametz should not be seen to you, and yeast should not be seen to you for 7 days. What's the difference between the first pasuk and the second pasuk? We immediately see two major differences. The first pasuk it says, in your homes. The second pasuk it says, b'chol gvulecha, in your entire border. In other words, the prohibition is expanded. The application is expanded. It's not just in my home, it's in my entire border. Anything that could be called my gvul, my boundary, my domain, my rishus, my property, even if it's not technically my home in which I live. It may be a home where my animals live. It may be a stable. It may be a pit that I own, a cave, a silo, a storage place, a cistern. It may be a second home, a temporary home. It may be a guest house, right? It may be another domain of mine. It may be, today you would call it, maybe a garage, whatever it is, but something I own, but it's not my home. I may never even walk in there or live there. So it says there, b'chol gvulecha, that's one major difference. Another major difference between the two psukim is, in the first pasuk it says, Yimatzei, it should not be found. In the second pasuk it says it should not be seen. A third difference between the two psukim is what? In the first one it doesn't say lecha. It says Shivas Yamim Sa'ar Lo Yimatzei Bevatechem. It should not be found in your home. It doesn't say it shouldn't be found to you. Lo Yimatzei lecha. It shouldn't be found at all. In the next pasuk there's a more limited application, which is Lo Yirah lecha. It shouldn't be seen to you. So on one level, the first pasuk is more stringent than the second one because it says lo yimatzei, it shouldn't be found. Where in the second one it says it shouldn't be seen, but it seems like it could be found. That's number one. Number two, the first pasuk is more stringent because in the first pasuk it doesn't say lecha, it shouldn't be found at all. In the second pasuk it says it shouldn't be seen to you. That would seem like a limitation where the application is more limited. Only to you it shouldn't be seen. So in that sense, the first pasuk is more stringent than the second pasuk because it says lo yimatzei, not only lo yirah, and it deletes the word lecha. On the other hand, the second pasuk is more stringent than the first pasuk because the first pasuk is limited to your home, and the second pasuk it gets expanded to b'chol gvulecha. Another major difference is the word chametz and the word sa'ir. In the first pasuk it says shivas yamim sa'ir lo yamatzeh b'bateichem, which is not chametz. Sa'ir makes chametz. Sa'ir is yeast that makes chametz or sourdough. The second pasuk includes both lo yirah lecha chametz and lo yirah lecha sa'ir, which seems redundant, but the Gemara does explain elsewhere that each one is important because sa'ir is not edible. So you might think you're allowed to have it in your home. On the other hand, it's the source of chametz. It's what inflates the dough. You put yeast into challah dough, and that's what turns it into chametz much more effectively and much faster and much more inflated. So sa'ir on one level is less than chametz because it's not edible. You don't eat it. On the other hand, it makes chametz. It creates chametz. Chametz, on the other hand, it's a product of sa'ir, and yet it's edible. So the Torah mentions both. Clearly, the Gemara explains, La yirah lecha chametz, la yirah lecha sa'ir. From chametz you wouldn't know sa'ir, and from sa'ir you would not necessarily know chametz, even though they're obviously connected, and both are now prohibited. What we do have now is one more pasuk that culminates all of the prohibitions in the whole of Chumash on chametz for 7 days. Right? And that is in Parshas Re'eh, which comes 40 years later. By the way, in chametz we have this famous expression, Bal Yeirah and Bal Yimatzeh, right? One of the most important expressions when it comes to Hilchas Chametz, Bal Yeirah, Bal Yimatzeh. That expression came from the two psukim in Parshas Boy. Bal Yimatzeh means it shouldn't be found, it shouldn't be existing. Matzeh means found or existing. Its presence, it shouldn't be existing. And Bal Yeirah means it shouldn't be seen. The first pasuk says, Shivas Yamim Sa'ir Lo Yimatzeh. That became the source of the expression Bal Yimatzeh. And the second pasuk says, Lo Yeirah became the source of the expression Bal Yeirah. That's why we say chametz is asur bebal Yeirah, bal yimatzeh. People use these terms, but they don't always know where to trace it back from. So now you know it's bal Yeirah, it shouldn't be seen, and bal yimatzeh, it shouldn't be present, it shouldn't be found. Which, of course, if something is found, is common. It may not. It's present, may not be seen, may be hidden. But the last pasuk we have is in Parshas Re'eh, and this is the third and final pasuk in the entire Chumash about the prohibition of chametz. And that is at the end of Parshas Re'eh when he goes through all the Yomim Tovim and he discusses Pesach. So as we learned earlier, he does. I just want you to retain this, page 538, Parshas Re'eh, Sefer Dvarim, Perek Tazayin, Pasuk Dalet. And this is very similar to the second one in Parshas Boy, where he says, 538, page 538 in the blue Chumashin, B'lo Yeirah lecha sa'ar b'chol gvulcha shivas yamim. Here he only says sa'ir, but again he uses the word lo yeirah, he puts in the word lecha, and he uses the word gvulcha. This mamish seems like a repetition of the previous, without any addition. It says lo yeirah, it says lecha, it says bechol gvulcha, it says sa'ir, which we already have in Parshas Boy. So this mamish seems like a complete repetition of the same prohibition of not seeing sa'ir for 7 days. Once a person knows these texts and knows these texts clearly, now we come to Torah Shabbal Peh, the oral commentary. And that is this Braisa, the Tanu Rabbanon, that's being conveyed on Daf Hayamid Beis all the way from the top of the page, from 4 lines from the top. And the Braisa goes all the way down to Amar Mar, right, to the 2 dots. It's a very long Braisa that we learned inside. And this Braisa basically analyzes all of these psukim, or it seems like it analyzes all of these psukim. And let me repeat Baal Peh, what we learned inside the Braisa, because the next piece of the Gemara, Amar Mar, is basically going to analyze this Braisa, which the Braisa leaves us with more questions than answers. The Braisa says how to look at these texts, but when we start thinking about the Braisa, it becomes very difficult, and therefore the Gemara has to come, and as always, the Amirayim explain the words of the Tanaim, and therefore the Gemara comes to explain the words of the Braisa. What did this long Braisa say? The Braisa started off with a question. I'm going to repeat Braisa, if you want to follow inside, I'm going to repeat it outside. We did inside. The Braisa starts off with a question. What was the question? The question is, once it says, Lo yirah lecha chametz, v'lo yirah lecha sa'ar, b'chol gvulecha, at the end of Parshas Boy, why should it say, Shivas yamim sa'ar, lo yimatzeh b'vateichem, even though that pasuk comes first? But it would seem like that the b'chol gvulecha is much broader, and therefore just put in the second pasuk, and you don't need the first pasuk. Of course, if it's b'chol gvulecha, it includes your home. My home is also part of my border, part of my domain. So why is there a need to tell me Shivas Yamim Sa'ar Lo Yimatzeh B'Vateichem when in a few psukim later Moshe Rabbeinu was anyway going to say Lo Yirah Lecha Chametz and Lo Yirah Lecha Sa'ar B'chol Gvulecha again? Batechem is included in Gvulecha. Gvulecha is not included in Batechem. So if you would say the second pasuk, I would know the first. If you would say the first, I would not know the second. So what does the Brisa answer? The Brisa answers, I need the second pasuk for the word Lecha. It says the word Lecha. And what does Lecha teach me? Lecha teaches me it shouldn't be seen to you. It doesn't mean it shouldn't be seen to you, but it should be seen to everybody else. Because it's seen to everybody else, it's also going to be seen by you. How do you make something that only you can't see it? Lo yirah lecha, and everybody else could see it. Lo yirah lecha is a certain limitation of the Isser. What type of chametz should not be seen? Chametz shalcha, your chametz. That's the chametz. The chametz shouldn't be seen to you means the chametz that is seen by you in a special way because it's yours. Lo yirah lecha, it shouldn't be seen to you as your chametz. Why? This is a huge yesod. You're allowed to see on Pesach chametz of other people, and you're allowed to see chametz of Gavaya, which means chametz that was consecrated to the Beis Hamikdash and doesn't belong to you or anybody else. It belongs to the Beis Hamikdash. Say you took a bottle of mashka and you consecrated it to the Bedek Habayis or whatever, it could be a pie of pizza, and you consecrated it. It belongs to Hekdesh, it doesn't belong to you, and that chametz you are allowed to see. By the way, the Toldos Yaakov Yosef, who was a student of the Baal Shem Tov, his name was Rabbi Yaakov Yosef, the Rav of Pulno. So he has a sefer Toldos Yaakov Yosef in Parshas Vayigash. He says Al derech halotza, in a humorous way. Why do the Chazal say Shalchai Ataraya? Aval Ataraya Shalachayim Shal Gavaya? It sounds like almost that it's like a positive thing, like but you see Acher. So he says he's describing human nature. Nobody sees their own chametz. He says. Ataraya Shalachayim. Everybody sees everybody else's chametz for Shal Gavaya, especially when you have a person who's a hecher, a mensch over there, everybody suddenly sees the chametz. It's a mitzvah to see the chametz in other people. Shal gavoya, if he's a higher person, then everybody discovers every chametz over there. He says instead, why don't you look at your own chametz? But then he says, l'chayre, it's a good thing, right? It's a din that shalchai ataraya. So he says, it's also a good thing. Why? He says, because generally in life, people don't take responsibility for themselves. Why do they take responsibility? They say there's other people who carry the world. But since you find chametz in everybody, and even the most gavoya echad chametz, so now finally you take responsibility. So you do something right, because nobody else is going to get it right. As is like the Toldos Yaakov Yosef. It's almost like the Torah is lamenting. Nobody sees their own chametz. They see the problems and flaws and egotism in everybody else, especially in higher people, where they will put them under scrutiny and under the spotlight to make sure to figure out every flaw and every evil bone in their body. Back to our halachic discussion of the topic. So therefore, we learn out from Lecha that Shalchai Yatoneh V'Latoreh Shalachayim B'Shal Gavoya. Granted, that's what we know from the Yirah Lechasar. Comes the Brisa and says, okay, but now I would think, if it would only say that Lo Yirah, so I would learn, again, we were assuming we only have the second pasuk, not the first pasuk. So I know that I'm not allowed to see my own chametz, but I could see somebody else's chametz in my house. Now the question is, can I hide chametz in my house? Yatmin. Yatmin means I take chametz and I hide it. Let's say I have a pit or I have a basement and I put it under something. I literally hide it. I don't see it. I can't see it the whole Pesach. Even if I walk there back and forth the whole day, I'm not going to see it because yatmin. You would think that would be fine because the pasuk says loy yera. The second thing the Brisa says you would think is you could receive pikdonis min hanachri. Pikdonis min hanachri means you could receive chametz from a non-Jew as a deposit, not as a deposit, as a storage, as a pikadon, as a security. Yeah, security. He wants to keep it by you. You would think that would be fine. Now, right now, there's a problem, which Rashi immediately points out, because what you just said, you're allowed to have chametz from somebody else in your house. So now you're telling me you would think, yeah. So the Gemara is going to struggle with this. On one hand, you just told me you could see other people's chametz. Then you say you would think you're allowed to take chametz from a non-Jew. Yes, indeed, you're allowed to. So that's this problem in the Brisa here. There's like there's an inherent contradiction here. I'm just pointing that out. The Gemara is going to explain this. Like, what are you allowed to have chametz of a guy or not? But you would think from the second pasuk, first of all, you're allowed to hide chametz. Second of all, you're allowed to get chametz from a guy if he gives it to you to watch for security. That's why we need the first pasuk. What does the first pasuk say? Lo yimatze. Lo yimatze means it shouldn't exist. This is only zayin. It shouldn't be found. I don't care if it's under a pit. I don't care if it's buried in your basement. I don't care if it's in a safe and you throw away the key. The bottom line is, lo yimatze, it should not be in your home. And it also doesn't say lecha. It says shivas yamim sa'ar lo yimatze. It doesn't say lo yimatze lecha, which means no chametz No sa'or should be in your house. That would include even not yours. So this would teach us that when you get from a Gentile chametz to watch, right? It's not lecha, it's his. I'm just watching it. I have to give it back to him. When he comes back in a week or 3 weeks or a month, I have to give back to him this bottle of liquor, this bottle of vodka, or this bread that he has given me. But nonetheless, I still cannot have it because it says lo yimatze without a lecha. That's the opening of the brisa. So now we explain why you need the first pasuk, lo yimatze b'vatechem. Then the brisa continues and added something, which again is going to be very problematic because logically you would do the other way. I would say that this is only true with a non-Jew whom you did not conquer, meaning somebody who's not subservient to the Jewish people, which is the expression we use for a ger toshav, a non-Jew who accepts the Sheva Mitzvahs B'nai Noach, and they would settle in a Jewish community in Eretz Yisrael, and their lives were consistent with the 7 Noachide laws, the Sheva Mitzvahs B'nai Noach, and therefore, this type of Gentile is, so to speak, subservient to the moral system of the Sheva Mitzvahs B'nai Noach. Or somebody who's not living with you in the same home, in the same courtyard. But what about somebody who is living with you, or somebody who does allow himself to be under the moral code of the Jewish people? How do you know that his chametz would be forbidden? That's the question of the brisa. Again, it wouldn't seem like a logical question, because it should be the other way around. In other words, he's saying, ainly you would think that the chametz would be forbidden only if you take security, only if you take chametz from a guy who doesn't live with you. But how do you know if he lives with you, it's still forbidden? So it says lo yimatze. Lo yimatze means nobody, no chametz should be found in your house, not from a guy who doesn't live with you, nor from a guy who lives with you. His chametz should not be found in your house. Again, they have a second problem here. You start off and you're telling me I wouldn't know the second case because it only says lo yimatze, but from lo yimatze I also know the second case. So what was your first thought? What was your second thought? The Gemara is going to discuss all of this. Now the question is, okay, so give me only the first pasuk. The first pasuk would settle everything. The first pasuk would say, even if you hide chametz, you're not allowed to have, right? And even if you get security and you take chametz from a guy, you're not allowed to have it. So give me the first pasuk. He says, no, because the first pasuk has a problem. It says only your home. But outside of your home, you're allowed to have chametz. That's why you need b'chol gvulecha, that anywhere where you control, you're not allowed to have chametz. Okay? So Sa'ar Le'ematze B'Batechem teaches me that you're not allowed to have in your home even hidden chametz. It also teaches me you're not allowed to have in your home chametz that you get from a non-Jew and he asks you to watch it. You're not allowed to have that in your home. The second pasuk teaches me that I'm not allowed to have chametz even outside of my home in any place that is my gvul. Now the brisa comes with the next step. V'adayin ani omer, I may still say, okay, in my house, if I have chametz in my house, I transgress Bal Yeira, because my house is part of Gvulcha. I transgress Bal Yimatze, because it's in my house. I transgress Bal Yatmin. I'm not allowed to hide the chametz because it says it shouldn't have. I also can't take chametz from a guy and watch it, but outside of my house. What about in my garage? Or what about in my cistern? Or what about in my silo or my storage place? Over there, where it doesn't say Lo Yimatze, it just says Lo Yeira, right? I could say, what am I going to say? I'm not allowed to see mine, right? But I could see other people's chametz. I can even take chametz from a non-Jew and watch it because it's not in my home, right? I can also hide chametz there. Again, I would say, in my home is lo yimatze. Outside of my home is what? Lo yeira shalcha. So what would that mean practically? In your home, you can't have chametz from a guy because it doesn't say lecha, right? You can't hide it. But what's about outside of your house? Then the main thing is don't see it. So if you hide it, you're good. If you hide it in a pit somewhere, you have a cave or a garage and you hide it, you're good. Gesundheit. If you take chametz from a guy there, he wants you should watch it, also good, because over there it says lecha, shalcha yateraya. Of course, that would mean that your house and outside of your house have different halachas. My own house where I live is much more limited than places where I don't live, even though they're under my control. And there would be a logic to that. In your house, you're walking around the whole day. You live there, you sleep there, you eat there, etc. You do the Seder there, you're there a whole Pesach. So I would understand that the Torah is much more strict. B'chol gvulecha, you have a yard that you have a domain that you own, maybe even in another city or another country. You're not going to get there. So Mela, I would say the Torah is much more lenient. It allows you to keep their chametz from a guy. if he gives it to you and wants you to watch it, or even if it's your own chametz, the Torah would allow you to hide chametz there. After it only says lo yera. How do we know that the prohibition of the one pasuk goes also to the second pasuk, and the leniency of one pasuk goes also to the first pasuk? Meaning, how do I know that even outside of my house, I'm not allowed to hide chametz? Or let's put it the other way. How do I know that inside my house, I'm allowed to see chametz that's not mine? How do I bring the two psukim together? I would say lo yimatze b'bateichem is one din, lo yirad l'chasar b'chag v'lach is another din, and each one has its parameters. So outside of my home, I could see somebody else's chametz. I can also hide my own chametz, right? And I can have goyish chametz. In my home, I can't hide chametz because it says lo yimatze, and I can't take chametz from a goy. It says lecha, that only says by lo yirad b'chag v'lach, and not by lo yimatze b'bateichem. How do I know that the chumrah of lo yimatze also applies to gvulcha? And how do I know that the kula, the leniency of lo yirad l'chasar b'chag also applies to my home? On this, the Brisa comes to the next step and says, because Moshe used the same word. As we remember from the Brisa of Rabbi Shmuel that we say before Shachris, and what's the second one? Gzeirah Shava. Gzeirah Shava is a very interesting methodology. It's a unique methodology. What's Gzeirah Shava? Gzeirah Shava means that when there's a word used in a particular halacha, and the same term is used in another halacha, in another situation, we compare one to the other. Now we have to know, could we always do it? Could we not always do it? We'll explore that in the future. But the point is, the first pasuk says Shivas Yamim Sa'or lo yimatze b'bateichem. The second pasuk says Lo yirah lecha chametz lo yirah lecha Sa'or b'chal gvulacha. Sa'or takes one pasuk and transports it to the other one, takes the second pasuk and transports it into the first. It's like hot sink. What do they call it? Hot sink, right? The arrows go this way and the arrow goes this way. In other words, take this pasuk and put it here when it applies, and take this pasuk and put it here. What would that mean practically? What it would mean practically is as follows. Just like in your home, you're over on Bal Yirah. You're not allowed to see it. You're over on Bal Yimatzeh if you hide it, right? You're not allowed to take chametz from a non-Jew who doesn't say lecha. You're not allowed to take it and watch chametz from a non-Jew who doesn't say lecha. Just like that's true, the same is true. Take that sa'or. When it says the word sa'or, the second pasuk, that sa'or carries with it. It transports. That's literally what it does. He takes the same word because it's copy-paste. You know what copy-paste means? Yeah? Not cut and paste. That would be something else. Copy-paste. You see, copy-paste wasn't invented now. It was invented a few thousand years ago. You copy and you paste, and now you have it in two places. Sa'or, sa'or. It's literally copy-paste. I'm not joking. Sa'or, you copy it, right? And you paste it here too. So now, even outside of my house, I have sa'or, I have the same halachas. What are the same halachas? I can't hide it outside of my house. If I have some stable in New Zealand, I can't hide chametz there. Nor can I take chametz from a non-Jew and watch it and put it there. Why? Because it says lo yimatze. So the halachas of lo yimatze, bibateichem apply also b'chol gvulecha. But now we go also the other way, copy-paste the other way. Just like in the second pasuk it says lo yirah lecha, which means only your chametz you're not allowed to see, but you're allowed to see chametz from somebody else. And from hekdesh, so also in your house, you also have the same leniency, even though it just says lo yimatze b'bateichem. We say no. What chametz are you not allowed to have in your house? Only your own chametz. But other people's chametz you can even see. Now, of course, we have here again the major contradiction. You just said that from lo yimatze you learn that you're not allowed to have chametz from a guy even outside of your house. Now you go the backwards and you say no. From lo yirah you learn that you're allowed to have chametz of a guy even in your house. So there's like copy and paste is very nice. The only problem is each copy is contradicting itself. So what are you doing? If you copy sa'or from lo yimatze to lo yirah, so you have a chumrah to eliminate chametz of a goy, because it doesn't say lecha. But if you copy it back from lo yirah, then you're allowed to have chametz of a goy. That's the major problem in this brisa. There's something off here that we're not getting. It's like you keep on contradicting yourself. This is obvious that the Gemara understood the brisa is not completing the sentence. It's assuming knowledge. It's assuming that people will figure it out on their own, because the Tanoim were very brief and concise because they assumed super intelligence and super sensitivity to truth. And that was the function of the Gemara, to elaborate and dissect it and explain it. I'm just giving you an example of how cryptic this brisa would be without the Gemara. You wouldn't know what hit you because you're mamish contradicting yourself in the same term. You're taking from one pasuk a chumrah, you're taking from a second pasuk a kula, which I don't mind. The problem is the chumrah and the kula are about the same thing. So you're contradicting yourself. I'm allowed to have chametz of a guy, I'm not allowed to have chametz of a guy. Lecha means only yours, but you're allowed to have chametz of a guy. Lo yimatze, you're saying you're not allowed to be makabel a pikadon mean hanachri. Okay, so the Gemara is going to explain the difference. The difference is going to be quite obvious and given. It's two types of chametz of a guy that you're going to have in your house. That was the end of the brisa. The end of the brisa, this finishes it. Now the Gemara will analyze word for word what this brisa means, which brings it lahalacha lemaisa, how we have to apply it practically. Amar Mar, the master said, which is basically the way how we quote the brisa. The master said, and the Gemara is going to start off with the second clause of the brisa. Amar Mar, einli elabenachi shaloiki vashte ve'ein sharim chabachatzer. The second clause of the brisa was that we said, Lo yimatze bevatechem teaches me that I'm not allowed to have chametz of a non-Jew in my house. I cannot take chametz from a non-Jew as a pikadon to guard in my house over Pesach. I can do it before Pesach, after Pesach, but not over Pesach. So the Brisa said, I would only know that this prohibition applies to a non-Jew who is not under your jurisdiction or does not live with you. But if he's under your jurisdiction, a ger toshav, or he lives with you in the same courtyard, right, or even lives in your house, how do you know that that would be forbidden? So the Brisa says, Talmud loymar lo yimatze bivatechem, which means it's a carte blanche prohibition. No chametz should be found in your house. Not yours, and not a non-Jew, even if he lives with you. That's what he says. Talmud loymar, that's where the pasuk says, Lo yimatze, you should not have any chametz in your house. Frag the Gemara, klape laya. Klape laya is a famous expression in Gemara, which means, in which direction are you heading? This doesn't make sense what you're saying. What's the klape laya? It's the other way around. Where do you think it's more logical to prohibit chametz from somebody in your house of a non-Jew? Somebody who's living with you, or somebody who just came in for 20 seconds to bring you a UPS package? Obviously, somebody who's living with you, the logic is it should be more forbidden, right? Somebody who's under you, somebody under your control, somebody's living with you, and yet the Brisa is saying, ainly, I would only say it's asur if he's not with you, but if he's with you, how do you know he's asur? So you say lo yimatze. Amar Rabbi, you're right, epoch. It must be a mistaken text. You have to reverse it. The Brisa meant to say the exact opposite. There was a mistaken text. Epoch means you have to amend the text and reverse it. The Brisa should have said, ainly, I would only know lo yimatze excludes a guy who's living with you. For example, you have a cleaning lady, or you have a construction fellow, and they live with you. You give them a room in the basement, right? The same courtyard, the same home. I would say their chametz is forbidden for you to have. But a guy who's not part of you and completely on his own, and he wants to give you chametz, I would say it's fine. So that's why it says lo yimatze, that no chametz. That's what he says, epoch. In other words, you shouldn't have any chametz whatsoever. What would be the logic? The logic would be, if the Nachri is under you, meaning he's subservient to the Jewish community, the Jewish religion, a ger toshav, that means they would accept a guy who was makabel shava mitzvos b'nei noach, he would become a citizen of the Jewish people. He wouldn't be Jewish. He didn't go through a conversion. It's called a ger toshav. He just went through the conversion of shava mitzvos b'nei noach. He becomes a regular citizen of Eretz Yisrael who doesn't follow the Jewish religion. He's a Gentile. But he's a moral Gentile who follows the Sheva Mitzvos B'nei Noach, and he's basically under the sociological banner of the Jewish people. He follows the moral code that a non-Jew has to follow. It's a very interesting phenomenon. The Torah says, "V'chei achicha imach." V'chei achicha ger soshav. You have to feed him. You have to take care of him. You have to nurture him. This is called kivashtei tachas yadecha. Okay, so you would say that his money, is tachas mamoincha. It's under Jewish control. Then you have a guy who lives with you. So that's mamash, somebody who lives with you. So their chametz is with you in the house. So you would say that lo yimatze bevatechem excludes only their chametz. That you're not allowed to have their chametz in your house. Even though it says lo yira lecha shel chayater. But now we're talking about the first pasuk where it says lo yimatze bevatechem, right? So since it says Shalchai Ataraya means you're not allowed to see your chametz. Somebody else's chametz, you would be allowed to see. But here the puzzle is Lo Yimotze, as we explained, you're not allowed to have any chametz. I might say that only applies to a guy who lives with you, but a guy who doesn't live with you, you could have. That's the chiddush. That Abaye says the Bryce is saying Lo Yimotze B'Vateichem is a blanket statement that no chametz could be found in your house, even of a Gentile, if you take it as chametz in order to watch, and as we see, you're going to be responsible for it. You're not allowed to have this chametz. Rava says.
I just don't understand. What's the whole thing with the Gentiles? And Shachos chametz. Why are we?
It's in your house. It's in your house. Are you allowed to have it in your house?
So anybody's chametz. What do you mean a Gentile? Why are we always picking the goyish chametz? My Shachos chametz. I'm a little confused.
You want to know what's the halacha with Yiddish chametz?
What's the difference?
Well,
Chametz is chametz. Why is the Gemara picking on something I'm missing?
we'll take a look in the Rashi. Lefisha Nemer v'lo yirah lecha. You see Rashi? Lefisha Nemer v'lo yirah lecha. What does Rashi say? In the middle of the page, Hey Amid Beis. Lefisha Nemer v'lo yirah lecha. Zak Rashi. The midikasav lecha. Mashma. You see? You see the Rashi? Daf Hey Amid Beis. You're looking on the wrong page. Lefisha Nemer v'lo yirah lecha. What does Rashi say? The midikasav lecha mashma mina shalchai ataraya. You see? Aval ataraya bigvulin shel acherim kegoin nachri v'shal gavaya migdishim lebed kabayis. Why does Rashi say kegoin nachri? Why doesn't he say another Jew? You could see b'chol gvulcha. You would think you could see chametz of somebody else. In other words, you can have in your rishus. Rashi says kegoin nachri. So it seems from Rashi that chametz shel acherim means only Gentile chametz. Gentile chametz you can have in your gvul. What about chametz of another Jew? Am I allowed to hold chametz of another Jew in my house over Pesach, even if I don't assume any responsibility? If it could just be there. From Rashi, it seems that what? That you would be over on Bayiram, Bayimatzeh, even though it's not yours, because it belongs to another Jew. That would explain why it says Avalataraya chametz shel acherim v'shel gavoya. Why doesn't he say Avalataraya chametz she'ener shelcha? Would have been much simpler. You could see chametz that's not yours. That would mean hekdesh. It would mean a non-Jew. It would mean a Jew. Any chametz that's not yours. He doesn't say that. Avalataraya chametz shel acherim v'shel gavoya. Why extend it? Why elaborate the lashon? But now we would understand why. Because he wants to say only acherim v'gavoya. There is chametz that's not yours that you're not allowed to have. For example, a Jewish chametz. Shel acherim, Rashi says kegoy nachri. For example, a Gentile.
So it goes beyond the goy's fikadim.
The question is when. When are you allowed to have a goy's chametz? When are you not allowed to have a goy's chametz? That's the contradiction we're going to deal with in a moment. When yes, when not, because we have the two psukim, lo yimotze and lecha. But the bottom line here is that from Rashi it's mashma that only non-Jewish chametz you're allowed to have, and that's why the Bir Hagra says, as the Vilna Gaon and Shulchan Aruch says, that's why it says aval ataraya shel acherim v'shel gavay. It doesn't say einer shel ataraya chametz she'ener shelcha, because you can't always have chametz she'ener shelcha. That's one shit. However, there's other shittas in Paiskim that even acherim includes even Jewish chametz. It's not common, because why would a Jew leave chametz by you over Pesach if it's his chametz, right? So it's not a common thing. So they could say that's why Rashi says kegoy nachri, because it's an example of a practical thing. A guy doesn't have to get rid of his chametz, yeah. But other poskim hold that you're not over by your rabbi yamatzah if you have another Jew's chametz. This is a machlokes among poskim what's pshat. I'll call upon him. So I'm just saying Gentile chametz, but perhaps you can also say Gemara says shalacherim. The Gemara doesn't say nachri. The Gemara says shalacherim. No, that's kivashtai. That's ainli ala nachri. Oh, over there the Gemara says yeah. Over there the Gemara says nachri. Yeah, that's true. That's true. No, the Gemara says, the Bryce says, Yikabel Pekdonis min hanachri. Could you take up a kaddim from the nachri, right? Yeah. It of course includes a nachri. The question is if it's limited only to a nachri. Okay. So Amela Abaye says, Epoch, you have to change the Bryce. Rava says, La'olam loy tepoch, there's no need to change the text. I reisha. This sentence of the Bryce goes on the reisha. It doesn't go on the sefer, it goes on the reisha. What do we mean on the reisha? Reisha means the part of the beginning of the Bryce. The beginning of the Bryce says that it says Lo yirah lecha shel chaya torah v'la torah shel acherim v'shel gavoya. You're allowed to see chametz of other people, let's say of non-Jews, and of hekdesh. Says the Braisa, ainly, when would you think you're allowed to have chametz in your house and see it? From a guy, a non-Jew who is not under your jurisdiction, and he's not living with you in the same courtyard. But chametz of nachish shekivashti, somebody who is under your jurisdiction, and lives with you in the courtyard, minayin, how would you know that he too is allowed to have his chametz in your house? In other words, I would say lo yirah lecha is only limited to a non-Jew who doesn't live with you. And again, I can understand the language, the logic, because if he doesn't live with you, so then you can have his chametz. But if he's with you, you would say, no, even though it's not lecha, you're still not allowed to have his chametz. Why? Because he is together with you. That's what you would say, which makes sense. It would make sense. It would make sense for two reasons. First of all, it's much more common. Second of all, it's much more connected to you. And maybe the most important thing is you could prevent him from coming in. He lives with you. You could say, I don't want chametz. So you would think that the limitation would exist, the heter would exist only for a Nachri who's not with you. Talmud Loimar says, that's why it says lo yimotze. That's why it says lo yimotze. That's how Rava teaches. So Abaye teaches that you have to change the text in the Braisa. Rava says you don't have to change the text in the Braisa. This part of the Braisa didn't go on the din of lo yimotze, that you're not allowed to have chametz. And you're saying even somebody in the Chotzi you're not allowed to have chametz. Going on the first part, that you're allowed to have chametz of a non-Jew, but you would think a non-Jew who lives with you, you're not allowed to have his chametz. Talmud loymar lo yimotze. Frag the Gemara, this doesn't make sense. Hai tana mahader ateiv v'nosiv lakroli yisura. You're looking for a heter, and you bring the pasuk of Isser, which is lo yimotze. You have to bring the pasuk lo yirah lecha, right? The Braisa says you would think that what chametz of a non-Jew are you allowed to hold on to somebody who doesn't live with you, but somebody who lives with you. Let's say you have a cleaning lady. Are you allowed to have that chametz in your house? Talmud loymar lo yimotze. It should say Talmud loymar lo yirah lecha, not Talmud loymar lo yimotze. You're trying to give a heter and you bring an Isser. According to Abaye, it can make sense because it's going on the Isser. Talmud loymar lo yimotze, you're not allowed to have any chametz in your house, even of a guy who doesn't live with you. But according to Rava, you're not changing the text. Something is wrong. And for the Gemara, mishum shenemar lecha lecha trei zimni. Here is where you're missing. There's a missing gap here. It says lecha twice. It says lo yirah lecha chametz lo yirah lecha ser b'chol gvulech in Parshas Boy, but in Parshas Re'eh there's a new lecha lo yirah lecha ser b'chol gvulech. You remember the third pasuk? That lecha was completely superfluous. What do we do with it? We don't have what to do with it. The first time it says lecha, it tells me shel chayi ateroya val ateroya shel acherim v'shel gavaya. It says twice because it's sa'ir and chametz. We said sa'ir and chametz you need twice. But the third time, Parshas Re'eh, lo yirah lecha ser b'chol gvulech, that's completely superfluous. Here we have one of the methods of discussing Torah. It's called the method of im einay inyan lekan tneu lekan. Not copy paste, but cut and paste. Cut and paste means sometimes you have a pasuk and the words are completely superfluous. So you'll take it from there and you'll apply it to the other pasuk that's discussing the same topic. Says Rava, the pshat in the Braisa is, it says lecha twice. The second lecha in Parshas Re'eh is completely superfluous. Apply it to lo yimotze. As though it would have said Shivas Yamim Sa'or lo yimotze lecha b'vatecha. So now you'll tell me this looks like comical. It doesn't say lecha, so you tell me it doesn't say lecha. But I found a lecha somewhere, so suddenly I took it. So you could have said lo yimotze lecha b'vatecha instead of doing a second pasuk. This is where the text becomes so awkward. He doesn't say lecha b'lo yimotze, and yet he means lecha because he writes lecha somewhere else, and it's superfluous, so you apply it to lo yimotze. But Rava says, so we'll soon see how that makes sense. But Rava says, because it says that lecha, so we take that lecha, we apply it to lo yimotze, as though it would have said shiva samsar lo yimotze lecha b'vatechem. What do we gain from this extra lecha? To teach me that shalchai ateroya v'lateroya shel acherim is more extreme than you imagine. It's not just ateroya shel acherim, a guy who doesn't live with you, a guy who's not under you. Even a Gentile who lives with you in the same chatzar, lives with you in the same courtyard, and you could tell her, please, don't have chametz. I don't want your chametz. Pesach is coming. No, I don't care if they have chametz. It's fine. It says, lo yimotze. So you would think that what lo yimatzeh means you're not allowed to have chametz at all, but we said lo yirah lecha shalcha yataraya. But I would think shalcha yataraya is what only a guy who doesn't live with you. But since it says a second lecha, so I take that lecha and I use that. I use that for lo yimatzeh, and what do? And I say that whenever chametz is not yours, you're allowed to have it. This is like it to Shaila. It's like it to Shaila. How do I know it's a good Shaila? Tosfos asks it. You're scoring home runs, Isaac. You had the Shaila, the Gemara, the Tosfos. He's asking a good Shaila. What do you have to cut and paste? Just say you have an extra lecha, so use that to teach you that shalcha yataraya v'lataraya shalacherim, even if they're living in your house. What do you have to manipulate Mises? What do you have to take the lecha and bring it to lo yimatzeh? Leave the lecha where it is, and say it says twice lo yirah lecha. One is extra, right? To teach you that only your chametz is not allowed. The first lecha would say you're allowed to see somebody else's chametz if he's a stranger. But if it's a guy who's living with you, he's a ben bayis. He works with you. Lives right near you, the same courtyard, the same house. Over there, you would say no. This is too much because you have so much access to it. Also, you can ask him not to do it. Whatever, there's different logics to say. Or somebody who's under your jurisdiction, so mamayncha is k'mamayncha, etc. What do you have to bring it here? That's a gewaldike shaila. Mamash a gewaldike shaila. Take a look in Tosfos. Right, so why don't you just use the lecha of lo yirah the second time for this limud? So the question is why. So Tosfos asks that. Take a look. Mishum deksiv lecha lecha trei zimni. You see? Mishum deksiv lecha lecha trei zimni. So Tosfos pirish hakontris kiven the meyater lecha shadya alo yimatzeh. Since you have an extra lecha, throw it. Cast it, paste it to lo yimatzeh. Because of the Rashba, the miyitura de lach gufei afilu b'loy lo yimatzeh matzinu lemiuti nachrish kivashtai. From the lecha itself, forget lo yimatzeh. It says a second lecha. So that second lecha will teach you that only your chametz you're not allowed to see. But even a non-Jew who is under you or living with you, you could see his chametz. V'oimeri the ilav bi lo yimatzeh. If not for the lo yimatzeh, milecha loy mematina nachish kivashtai. You wouldn't do this. Why? Dahu nami lecha chashiva. Because he's so much part of you. It's like the family. V'hava amine da asi lidrash acharina. You would explain the second lecha for something else. Aval hashta de shadina lo yimatzeh. But now that you put it to lo yimatzeh, mimashmuuse mimatinan. Now the meaning of the pasuk excludes it. Why? Nachish kivashtai. You memayet anachish gevashte de lo yimatzeh lecha mashma afilu b'matzui b'inalach. Even if it's matzui, it's still limited to lecha. What does he mean? When you have a guy living with you, the chametz is so much similar to yours. Let's say you have a cleaning lady, right? Yeah, you have a cleaning lady. So the chametz that she has, even if it doesn't belong to you, belongs to her. It's so similar to your chametz in the sense that it's in your house constantly because it's somebody who's living with you. So you would think that from the second lecha you wouldn't exclude it because that's called lecha. It says a second lecha. You would find some limud for the second lecha. But once we have a method to cut and paste, to apply it to lo yimatzeh, then you can exclude even this chametz. Why? Because we say lo yimatzeh lecha. What does matzui mean? Matzui means it's found, it's common. Matzui also in Lashon Kodesh means a davar matzui. Davar matzui means something that's present, something that's found, something that's very present. So lo yimatzei would mean lecha. Even the chametz that's matzui, that's very common, very present, it's found in your house 24 hours a day. Even that chametz is only asur if it's lecha, if it's your chametz. Even chametz hamatzui lach, chametz that is accessible. It's not just a guy who walks in for 5 minutes with a bagel. You don't have to throw him out. You can have it there. A guy comes from the mail, a mailman comes in with a bagel on Pesach. Fine, I know that. Shalcha yatarah. You're allowed to have his chametz in your house, right? But what about a guy who's living with you? So it's matzui. It's matzah lecha, it's accessible. Lo yimatzeh lecha. Lo yira lecha, you wouldn't say that. That's why Rava felt that you have to copy and paste to lo yimatzeh. That's what the Ri explains. Al kol panim, this makes the Braisa, so this now finishes the explanation of this part of the Braisa, that what? That all chametz of a non-Jew you're allowed to have in your house. And you're allowed to see it in your house and outside your house. He's living with you. I don't care. Lecha excludes and gives you a heter for all other chametz outside of you. Good, granted. That's how Rava understood this part of the Braisa. Omar Mar, the Braisa also told us, now we go back to the beginning, Yochel Yatmin, I would think you're allowed to hide chametz, v'yikabel pikdonis min anachrim, and you're allowed to also take chametz from a non-Jew and hold it and watch it. Talmud loymar lo yimatzeh. That's why you need the pasuk lo yimatzeh. Lo yira would mean you're not allowed to see. Lecha would mean only yours. But if it's not yours, you can have it in the open. And even if it's yours, you can hide it. So it says lo yimatzeh. Frag the Gemara, now we come to the main question. Here you come to your big contradiction. Decide what you want. First you tell me you're allowed to have other people's chametz in your house. Now you're telling me you're not allowed to be mekabel b'kadim min anachri. And you have two psukim, and they keep on competing with each other, and you say both are true. How do we understand the price? Loi kash, it's not a question. Ha de kabel alei achrayis, ha de loi kabel alei achrayis. There's a difference. In one case, you accepted responsibility for the chametz. In one case, you did not accept responsibility for the chametz if it gets lost or gets stolen to pay for it. In other words, when the Tana says, Lo yera lecha, aval ataroya shel achedim v'shel gavaya, both outside your house and in your house, both a guy who lives with you and doesn't live with you, both a guy who's under you and a guy who's not under you, that's talking about chametz of a non-Jew. That's not my responsibility. It's his responsibility. It's in my house, Taka. It's in my garage. It's in my silo. It's in my pit. It's in my dining room. But it's his chametz. It's completely his. I was not mekabel achrayus. And that's what Shulcha teaches me. It says lo yimatzeh. And lo yimatzeh teaches me what? Number one, I'm not allowed to hide. Number two, I can't be mekabel pikadin min anachi because over there it doesn't say lecha. That's talking about a different type of chametz. A guy comes to me and says, please watch my chametz. And I agree to watch it and I accept responsibility for it. What means you accept responsibility for it? Say somebody steals it. I can't say, sorry, what do you want from me? I'm a shomer. I assumed responsibility for it. This, the Torah treats like your chametz. That's why it says, lo yimatzeh. Lo yimatzeh teaches me. You can't be mekabel b'kadim manachi. And again, no difference. Even a stranger or not a stranger. If you're mekabel achrayis, then it's like you're a chametz.
So what's the case where he didn't mekabel a kinyan shomer? That someone just forced it on him? Or I don't understand the case of a non-kinyan shomer that he wouldn't be responsible for it.
You have a non-Jew who lives in your place, and he has his own chametz. He may have his own chametz. Or a guy may bring in chametz, but you don't have any responsibility for it. You're not mekabel any achrayus for it. Let's say you have a guy comes in with chametz into the house. It's his chametz. You're not mekabel achrayus. Huh? Yeah, no. When somebody rents a house, then of course, then it's not shaykh to me. As long as he rented it before you dalit, that's his problem.
It's still there with your das and your rishus.
That's fine. As long as you're not responsible for it, we say it's not yours.
You're saying if it burns up, it's not
Yeah.
your responsibility.
If let's say it gets lost, let's say somebody steals it, you're not mekabel achrayus, you're good. Now you're going to ask a question. Rava just told me that you took lecha and you did cut and paste. So it's like it says lo yimatzeh lecha. So if it says lo yimatzeh lecha, so then what's the difference? So there shouldn't be any situation where you're mechuyev for anybody else's chametz. But here's where you see the meticulousness in it. The lecha of lo yimatzeh is cut and paste. It's not a natural lecha. Shtaltzich the shaila, why didn't Moshe Rabbeinu just write lo yimatzeh lecha? Don't make me as amaisa, make me a second lo yira lecha. So now I schlep that lecha and I put it here. Come on. You want to say lecha, say lecha. That itself is part of the limud. The lo yimotze lecha is not so poshet. In other words, I want you to read lo yimotze, lo yimotze. You're not allowed to have chametz in your house. You're not allowed to have chametz in your house at all. You're not allowed to have chametz. Who's chametz? Nobody's chametz. 1 second, but you told me lo yirah lecha. You're only not allowed to have your chametz. And sa'ir, we compare the two. So I'm now completely confused. One pasuk you told me I'm not allowed to have chametz at all. Another pasuk you told me I'm not allowed to have my chametz. That means I'm allowed to have non-Jewish chametz in my house. So what do I do with this? So from here, I have to differentiate. And I have to say, he especially wrote lo yimotze without lecha to teach me that there is a nekud of somebody else's chametz, there is a scenario of somebody else's chametz that I'm not allowed to have in my house. That's why he doesn't say lecha. And then we know from lo yirah that there's another person's chametz that I'm allowed to have in my house. So what's the differentiation that Chazal had to make? They made this differentiation. If I didn't take responsibility, it's completely his, then I'm allowed to have it in the house.
And that's not gevul lecha? That's not
Whether in the house or in the gvul. Whether in the house or anywhere. If I didn't take responsibility, I'm allowed to have it in gvuli and I'm allowed to have it in my house. Because sa'ir. If I did take responsibility for it, if I was makabel achrayis for it, then it's considered like mine. Why is it considered like mine? Even though it's not mine, it's not really mine. It's his. But I assumed responsibility for it. If it gets lost, I have to pay for it. And then the situation is, lo yimotze, that chametz you're not allowed to have in your house at all. So therefore, the Torah didn't say the word lecha by lo yimotze, so that we should also be able to learn the pasuk according to pshat. Lo yimotze means you're not allowed to have chametz in your house, and it teaches me that there are situations when the Torah prohibits having chametz even of a non-Jew in my house. So very often, whenever we say im eino inyan lakan tneo lakan, you're cutting and pasting. It's not stam. Let's cut and paste. That itself is a diuk. Why it doesn't say lechan, you have to bring it in. So I do bring in the lechan to lo yimotze to teach me what? That if I didn't take achrayis, then even a guy who lives with me, I'm allowed to have his chametz. That's where I use the lecha for lo yimotze. That's where I need the lecha, because if not, I would have limited the heter only to a guy who doesn't live with me. On the other hand, I don't use the lecha for lo yimotze, because obviously it doesn't say lecha by lo yimotze, to teach me that the Torah wants to say there's situations where you shouldn't have any chametz in your house, even of somebody else, even a non-Jew. Not only lecha, all chametz is lo yimotze, glat chametz, lo yimotze. What situation? When I'm a kabel achrayas. An illustration for this difference is a story. Rava told the people of his city. Rava lived in a city called Mechuzah in Babylonia, and he said fascinating. He said the fascinating statement to them: Beiru chamira de bnei chelim mibataycho. Before Pesach, eliminate the chametz of the troops, of the soldiers from your house. Why? What is he talking about? The system used to be, this was also true sometimes in the Shtetlach in Eastern Europe. Forced lodging. Forced lodging would mean the soldiers would come. They didn't have to go look for a Motel 6 or for the Hilton Hotel. They took the Jewish homes. They went in. They became suddenly tenants for free.
Which soldiers are we talking about historically?
Well, Rava told it to the people, the soldiers of that came into Mechuzah.
Persia?
Yeah, Persia. And Persia at the time. Forced lodgings, and not only forced lodgings, they would have to make them food also. They would have to make them food. And as Rabbeinu Chananel puts it, that very often they would bring flour and they would tell the balabastas, here, make us geschmacka bread. They would bring in their flour. They would say, here, make us good meals, lavish meals. And the Jewish women or the Jewish men or the Jewish children would prepare for them lavish meals, sometimes their own food and sometimes their food. They brought in raw materials like flour. Here, do it. What do they have to bother with it? And this was a very comfortable situation. Comes Pesach now, and you have chametz. This chametz is whose? It's the soldiers. It's the chametz. You may have baked it, but it's for them, right? Do I have to get rid of it? Even if they're living with you or they're eating with you, it's fine. It's not your chametz. It's his chametz. Rava said you have to get rid of all the chametz. Why? Kivan de ilu migna ve'ilu mitvid. If it would get stolen or get lost, it's considered in your rishus. You're considered the owner. You'd have to pay for it. Kidil choin dami. Halachically, we look at this chametz as yours, v'asr, so it's prohibited to have it in the house for Pesach. In other words, just like if I sell you chametz, but before you actually had a chance to be kind it or to take it, it gets lost in the house. There's a hurricane, there's a tsunami, there's a flood, and all the chametz. Yeah, you come and I'm selling you 20 sacks of kernels of grain or flour. Yeah, but you weren't kind it. And it gets destroyed, who has to pay for it? I have to pay for it. Why? Because it's mine. It's my achrayis. You pay once you bought it. It's tough luck. But as long as it's not yours, it's mine. I have to pay for it. So Rava said, even though it's not yours, but since if it gets lost, who assumes responsibility for this? As though it was theirs, as though it was in my rishus. You. So halachically, it's considered your chametz. So therefore, Rava says you have to get rid of this chametz before Pesach happens. You have to get rid of it. Otherwise, you have to give it to the soldiers. You have to give it to the government. Maybe you have to burn it and pay it back. Whatever the situation was, but it can't be by you. It has to be out of your rishus. Here we see this yisoid of achrayas. Now, since they were troops, as many of the poskim explain, since they were troops, so this was part of the legal law. This was part of legalities. It wasn't just a gangster who did it. This was part of the laws of the Malchus, the special treatment for troops like they had throughout history. And you're responsible for it, and you have to take care of it. And therefore, we learn from here that in a regular situation where I was makabel achrayas for the chametz, what says I was makabel achrayas? That if it gets stolen or it gets lost, I'm going to have to pay for it. So that chametz is considered mine. And where do we learn it from? Lo Yimatzeh. The Lo Yimatzeh teaches me. So the Gemara.
This is an einshin. This is an einus, so they have the highest level of achrayas. But it's forced on them.
That's a good question. What level of shmira is necessary? There's 3 levels of shmira. Shem Echinam, Shem Esachar, and a Shayal. One level of shmira is the most basic, negligence. I won't be negligent, right? But if I'm negligent, then I have to pay for it. That's the most basic level of shmira. In other words, some basic responsibility. I'm not going to borrow a dog and leave the door open at night. That's basic. Sometimes I accept nothing. You want to keep your dog here, keep your dog here. I'm not responsible for anything. Then I'm not a shomer. That's the level of shomer chinam. One level above that, which usually is for pay, is shomer sachar. In other words, I won't be negligent, but also I'm responsible for theft. I'm responsible for being lost. But I'm not responsible for a world war. I'm not responsible for a hurricane. I'm not responsible for an avalanche. I'm not responsible for armed robbery that I could not deal with. I'm responsible for the basics, right? That's called Gneva Vaved. And then there's the highest level, even Einstein, right? Even if it's completely not my... There was nothing I can do. A hurricane came. There was nothing I can do. And swept away your animal or your property, I still pay. What level of achrayas are we talking about? What level of achrayas? Huh? So he says Gneva Vaved. If it gets stolen and it gets lost, right? So in Shulchan Aruch, there's 2 shittas. One shitta is, the first shitta is Gneva Vaveda. In other words, you didn't only accept responsibility not to be negligent. That's not enough. That's basic. That's still a shomer. Why? Because then, if you're negligent, it's not you a makabel achrayas. Then you're a mazik. You have to pay because you're a mazik. If I'm mazik, you chametz, I have to pay, but it's not mine. If I take achrayas for Gneva Vaveda, then it's considered mine.
What's their pay though? What's their spot? That they have troops to protect them?
Yeah, you have troops. The second shit is even a lower level of shmira. Just for pshia would still be achrayas. So Rava would mean that kivan the ilu mignev ve'ilu mitvid, yeah, through your pshia you have to say. In other words, you could say that if it gets lost or gets stolen because you were negligent, that's why it got lost, it got stolen. There is one shit that's not brought on Shulchan Aruch that you have to be makabel achrayas for einsin, even the highest level. But generally, most shittas is the first shitta that is you makabel achrayas for Gneva Vaveda. Another shitta is even the lower level of achrayas that you say, I'm going to watch it, I'm not going to be negligent, even though if it gets stolen, it's not my fault. That may also be a kabbalah achrayas. This is a machlokes that's brought in Shulchan Aruch, in Hilchos Pesach, in Siman Taf Mem. There's one last detail here that I want to do and we'll finish. The Gemara says, Hanicha, this makes sense, Lamanda Amar, Davar Hagoyrim Lamamin Kamamin Dami. Something that causes money is considered money. Elalamanda Amar Lav Kamamin Dami Ma'ikalamemer. But if you say it's not considered money, how would you explain this Gemara? Meaning there's a machlokes in Chazal between Reb Shimon and the Chachamim about something that's called Davar Hagoyrim Lamamin. What does it mean, Davar Hagoyrim Lamamin? Something that causes a monetary benefit. This itself doesn't give you a monetary benefit. Why? Because there's no monetary benefit, or you may not own it. But it somehow indirectly gives you a monetary benefit. For example, it exempts you from an obligation to pay money, because if it would get lost, you would have to pay. So by having this not get lost, indirectly, you're gaining money. Let me give a mashal where the machlokes is. Let's say you say, I'm going to bring a carbon. I'm going to bring a carbon oil to the Beis HaMikdash. You separate a sheep, or a goat, or you separate a sheep, let's say, or a bull for this carbon. That's the halach. The moment you separate it and you're makdash it, you consecrate, it doesn't belong to you anymore. It belongs to the Beis HaMikdash. It belongs to Gavaya. It's not, It cost you money initially. Yeah, you're giving the nation to the Beis HaMikdash. Yeah. On the other hand, it's goyrim l'mammon. It's not yours anymore. You can't do anything with it. You can't sell. It's goyrim l'mammon, meaning when you said harei alai oila, you're makabel achrayas. You assume responsibility. So let's say somebody goes and steals this sheep. You have to replace it. So the fact that you have this sheep is not money for you. It's not like I could sell this sheep now for $1,000. I can't. But it's I gave it away, right? But now it's goyrim l'mammon. It's giving me a monetary benefit. Why? Because if you steal this sheep, or if this sheep dies, or if this sheep is blemished, or if this sheep is stolen, what's going to happen? I'm going to have to lay out $1,000. This is called davar hagoyrim l'mammon. I can't say that this is part of my assets. It's not. It belongs to the Beis HaMikdash. It used to be, not anymore, right? But it's goyrim l'mammon, meaning it's giving me a financial benefit. As long as this is here, I could keep $1,000 in my bank. If this gets lost, I have to take out $1,000 or $100 to pay for this sheep. Now is a question. A ganav comes and steals this sheep. We catch him, okay? Usually what does a ganav have to pay? Kefil, double. But that's only if you steal from a fellow Jew, not if you steal from the Beis HaMikdash. Does he have to pay kefil or not? Machlokes. If you say davar hagoyrim l'mammon k'mammon dami, if you say a davar that's goyrim l'mammon is like mammon, so it's as though I still have ownership in it. Because even though I don't own it, but it's causing me a financial benefit, so he stole the money from me, so therefore he has to pay kefil. If you say davar hagoyrim l'mammon eina k'mammon dami, so therefore this is not called my mammon, so he doesn't have to pay kefil.
How does that question arise? Because I thought Gavoa is not your friend. So the whole concept of theft and payment wouldn't arise.
That's the point. It says Yishalom Ishli Re'eyu. So if you say davar hagoyrim l'mammon eino k'mammon dami, that's the shit of the Chachamim. You don't have to pay kefil. You have to give it back. You took it from the Beis HaMikdash. You don't have to give it back. So you don't have to pay kefil. You don't have to pay 4 times, 5 times if you slaughter it or sell it. Reb Shimon holds davar hagoyrim l'mammon k'mammon dami. So b'meila you have to pay. You have to pay kefil. So the ganev, according to the first opinion, gets away with murder. Because he doesn't have to pay kefil. The second oifen, it's considered re'eyu. You didn't steal it from re'eyu, you stole it from the Beis HaMikdash. The answer is, since it's still in my domain, and if it gets lost, I would have to pay for it. So therefore, it's goyrim l'mammon, so therefore it's k'mammon dami. So the Gemara says like this, if you hold over a goyrim l'mammon k'mammon dami, then the Brisa makes sense. Why? Because this chametz of these soldiers, it's not mine. I can't do anything with it. But it's goyrim l'mammon. It's giving me monetary benefit. Why? Because if it gets lost or gets stolen, I got to pay. So the fact that it's here is giving me indirectly monetary benefit. So you could say it's considered mine, just like something I own. But if you say davar hagoyrim l'mammon is not mammon, so I don't have any schus mammon in this chametz. This chametz has no relationship to me. It's just in my house, but it's not considered mammon. If it's not considered mammon, what does it mean something belongs to you? Something belongs to you means it's expressed its monetary value. You could eat it, you could sell it, you could benefit from it. There's some mammon, there's some bailus that you have in it. If this is called...
You technically lose.
Yes. So if it's Eina Kamaman Dami, that's a Sraila. If you say Kamaman Dami, then I understand it's Nechshav Mammon, so therefore even Chametz of a guy, if I took Achrayas.
If you say it's kamaman, why do you need a loy mutza?
Huh? Okay, one second. But if you say Eina Kamaman, what are you going to say? What are you going to say Pshat? How are you going to say from Lo Yimatze that you're not allowed to have chametz of a guy that you're chayiv in as achrayas? It's not considered my chametz because it's lav kamaman dami. So what's the difference if I take achrayas? I don't take achrayas. It's like stam chametz of a guy. So he says shiny hachadam Lo Yimatze. Even if you say lav kamaman dami, which is the halacha because it's the shit of the chachamim, this is different because it says Lo Yimatze. In other words, the Lo Yimatze without lecha is teaching me a special limit, like Xeris HaKosav is teaching me that the Torah believes that chametz of a goy, which is under my achrayas, is considered asur, even though it's not mine. In other words, the fact that I took achrayas puts it in a category of matzui. It's matzui. Because it's matzui by me, because I took achrayas for it, I not only have it in my house, I took responsibility for it, therefore the Torah prohibits it. Ikedamri. Others say that the argument was a little different, the question was a little different. I understand if you say lav kamaman, that's why it says lo yimatz el leman dama kamaman dami. But if it's mammon lo yimatze lamali, what do you need the lo yimatze? It's so obvious that this chametz is yours and you're not allowed to have it like any other chametz. In other words, according to this lashon of the Gemara, according to the Pshimon who holds davar agarim lemaman kamaman dami, it's a svara pshuta. It's obvious that this chametz is considered yours, and you don't need a special pasuk lo yimatze to aser it, right? Because it's mamish like yours. So if you say kamaman dami, what do you need to be marba the iser from lo yimatze? It's part of lo yirah lechasar, because even this chametz is considered yours like any other chametz, because it's mammon. It's like your mammon. So he says it's tzurich. You still need the chiddush of lo yimatze. Why? Because salkadai dechamina, I would think hoyel v'chiyisi hada behene. As long as this chametz existed, nobody stole it and nobody lost it, you're going to have to give back the same chametz to the person. Hadar be'ena, you have to give it back as is. You can't say, let me take it and I'll give you money instead. If it gets lost, you don't have a choice. But if it doesn't get lost, you have to give it the way it is. So lav b'rishusekai. So you would think that ultimately, it's not in your rishus. It's considered chametz that's not yours, that you're allowed to have it in your rishus. In other words, the Isra Bayira Bayimatze is noyeg when the chametz is here and it's in your rishus be'ayin, in its mitzvah the way it is, because if it gets stolen or it gets lost, right? So you're not machzik it until you should be over. In other words, when it's in mitzvah, it's not in your rishus, so you're not over on Bayira. Other chametz, what makes it chametz? Right now, it's my chametz. This chametz, when is it going to become your chametz? As long as it remains in your rishus, as long as it remains in your rishus, then you can't say, oh, it's mine, I'll give you money. The guy comes back for his chametz, he can say, oh, I'll give you another bottle. No, this is my bottle, I gave it to you. When does it actually become yours? When it's bal yera, when it's bal yimatze, when it gets stolen, when it gets lost. So it's different than your own chametz. Your own chametz is in your rishus right now. So that's what he says. Since if it's here, it's going to go back as is, you can't hold on to it and pay it. So this chametz is not considered in your rishus. In other words, we're going to look at it as chametz that it's not yours, that you're allowed to have in your rishus. That's what you would say. That's what you would say. It's not considered your rishus. Even though davar agorim lemamen, kemamen dami, it's gorim lemamen. But right now, I would say it's not considered your chametz. Don't say it's your chametz. We asked, what do you need a pasuk lo yimatze? It's part of lo yirah. It's lecha. It's considered lecha. So he's saying, no, you can't compare it. You can't compare it. So when, therefore, I would say that it's lav b'rishusekai kamashmon. That's why the pasuk has to tell you a special chumrah by chametz lo yimatze, and it doesn't say lecha. Why? If it would have just said lecha, you would think that even something that you will makabel achrayis, even if you hold over agarim lemamen kamamen dami, nonetheless it's not mamish in your rishus, and therefore you would say shalchaya ataraya, aval ataraya shalachedim v'shal gavoya. And what does it mean raya shalachedim? Even if it's chametz that you will makabel achrayis, even if you hold over agarim lemamen kamamen dami, and you wouldn't need any other psukim, and everything would be fine. You wouldn't need this whole lo yimatze without lecha. But because it says lo yimatze, without lecha, which means that what, you're not allowed to have chametz in your house at all. Anybody's chametz, even a non-Jew's chametz, you're not allowed to have. On the other hand, there's another pasuk that says you're allowed to have a non-Jew's chametz in your house. So here we could differentiate and we say that the Torah is mechadish, that what? That if you're makabel achrayis, even though it's taken not yours in the classic sense, because you can't just take it and give him money, you have to give it back to him. But if you're makabel achrayis on it, if you hold davar agarim lamamin kamamin dami, and even if you hold davar agarim lamamin eina kamamin dami, right? But since you were makabel achrayis on it, so the Torah compares it to your chametz. Now the Torah looks at it as it's your chametz, and you have to be mevayer chametz. It's not your chametz; it's his chametz. And especially if you hold over agarim lamamin eina kamamin dami, so there's no even schus mammon in it. But because you assume responsibility for it, so it's like, so to speak, it's my baby. It's like my baby, even though it's not legally my baby. It's not legally my baby. It's not. It's your baby. But it's mine. In other words, just like when something is yours, you have a chrayas for it. Nobody else. I don't have a chrayas to watch your hat. I'm not responsible to watch your hat. You're responsible. I mean, you're not responsible. If you want it, you want it. So when I take a chrayas for it, the Torah says that's the lo yimatze. The lo yimatze teaches me that there's an akuda of chametz, that even though it's not shalcha, that you're not allowed to have it in your house. Why are you not allowed to have it in your house? Because it's like shalcha. Because it says lo yirah lecha. What makes it like shali? That if I took a chrayas on it, the Torah says this is considered my chametz. On the other hand, even though we take the second lechem, we put it by lo yimatze, but it doesn't say befedish. Because it doesn't say befedish, so we do both things. We take the second lechem, we put it by lo yimatze to teach me that what? That even a guy who lives with me, if I wasn't makabel achrayis, I can have his chametz. We take out the second lechem, we don't use it by lo yimatze to say, even a guy who doesn't live with me, but if I'm makabel achrayis, I'm not allowed to have his chametz. Verstanden? Das Chazere. Well, by eating, it doesn't say you're not allowed to eat your chametz. It says you're not allowed to eat any chametz. It's not, because it's a special isser not to eat chametz, and it doesn't say over there. If it would say lo ye'achel chametz shalcha, then you're right. It just says you're not allowed to eat chametz. So when in eating, all chametz is forbidden. But having, not all chametz is forbidden. Because the pasuk says lo yirah lecha chametz. Lo yirah lecha. It says 3 times lo yirah lecha chametz, lo yirah lecha sar, and then a second time lo yirah lecha sar. It says achila, but it doesn't say lecha. It doesn't say lo yachal lecha chametz or lo yachal chametz lecha. It just says lo yachal chametz. Kol machmetz is lo yisechelu. Kol oichel chametz v'nichrasa. And we could understand the difference. No, it's not only that. Eating chametz, what's the difference whose chametz I eat? I ate chametz. Yeah, but if you say the whole reason you're not allowed to have chametz is because you may come to eat it, which is one of the explanations, so then if it's my chametz, it's a much more serious chashash. If it's your chametz... If you say that the reason of Bal Yirah is that you shouldn't come to eat it, so then it would make a lot of sense. Yeah. It's an Isra of Pesach, but there may be a logic to the Isra. The same one it says. The same one it says. Some Sefer says, it says the same pasuk. It says, Ach b'yayim harishon tashbisu, ki kol oichel chametz v'nichrasa. It sounds like the pshat that the reason tashbisu is you shouldn't come to eat it. But tashbisu is also connected. Tashbisu means you get rid of it. Tashbisu eliminates the Bal Yirah. Avodah Zarah you're not allowed to have. But Avodah Zarah is not shaykh to eating. Even stam or statue. You're not allowed to have Avodah Zarah. That's it. Avodah Zarah and chametz are the 2 only things. Avodah Zarah and chametz, the two only things you're not allowed to have. If you say the reason is because you're going to come to eat it, then you can understand. If it's the Beis Hamikdash's chametz or it's a guy's chametz, it's not mine to eat, right? If I wasn't Makabel Christ, even if you say it's Taman Isra, you're not allowed to have chametz. Yeah, you're not allowed to have chametz. If it's not my chametz, I'm not having the chametz. It's somebody else's chametz. You don't stam do things. That's what I'm saying. Amen. Amen.